beefing with children, upholding the laws, and looking like Sunlung from Heaven Official's Blessing, Easthies, they could never make me form a solid opinion on you, beyond your beauty, of course. Witch Hat Atelier has taken my life by storm this summer, and along with the stunning anime and beautiful manga, I found myself fascinated by Easthies, a character many seem to hate, and for kind of good reason, and a character that is so shackled by his fears. I find this dichotomy inherently fascinating. This video will discuss manga spoilers up through the Silver Eve festival, and I guess technically up through chapter 97, so if you've only seen the anime, tread carefully. So what the hell is Easthies' problem? And more importantly, is he actually a bad person, deserving of all the criticism and hatred his character gets? Spoiler, it's more complicated than a simple black and white right or wrong. Easthies has nuance, as does the rest of Witch Hat Atelier. When Easthies is first introduced, he plays the role of an antagonist, opposing the main character Coco. He snatches her up along with a god, ready to wipe their minds of magic before finding out what even actually happened, assuming the two witches on the scene were the ones who committed the crime. Something that the audience knows is not true, but he's not willing to listen. Instead, focused on serving what he thinks is justice as swiftly as possible, blind to his own ignorance. To the point that he needs to be told by Orugio that there are, in fact, people who still need a witch's help, literally right in front of them, reminding Easthies and the rest of his crew that the whole point of magic is to help others in need. Within the world of Witch Hat Atelier, the Knights Moralis are basically the witch police force, enforcing the law in the name of protecting others, but more focused on enacting justice than actually helping people, at least with what we have seen so far in the series. Wiping the memories of those who wrongfully learn about magic or abuse their position as a privileged witch. When they erase a person's memory, it is typically just erasing the stuff pertaining to magic, or maybe even stuff within the past, hour. There are different parameters that can be used for erasing memory, and they typically only use the less serious parameters depending on what they're erasing. So a random kid on the street who's never really been around magic sees someone draw a spell and accidentally learns the secret, yeah, he'll be fine. Erasing the memory, no big deal. They lose what? The past hour? A memory they literally just made? It still sucks, but they do still retain who they are as a person and go about their life as if nothing happened. However, this concept immediately becomes more complicated and less harmless the more entrenched in magic a person is. Coco, a girl who has spent her whole life in love with magic, chasing the highs of a fantasy, dreaming of being a witch, she would lose her passion and her drive. She wouldn't lose herself, but she would lose a lot of what makes her Coco. She would still retain the basics of who she is, but that's about it. She'd remember most of her mundane childhood, but what about the person that grew up in a witch society? A person whose entire life is wrapped up in magic? They'd lose everything. The series sets up the memory wipe as a horrible fate just as soon as the concept is introduced. Is Easthies right to brashly wield such a damaging power in the name of keeping order? Most of us would probably say no. But within the world of Witch Hat Atelier, it's a little bit murkier than that. The world of Witch Hat Atelier is scarred by the depravity of humans past. When all of humanity knew the truth of magic, many abused that power to greatly harm others and the world around them. In response to all of the carnage, the pact was made, and the Knights Moralis strongly defend the balance that was struck. When you can turn someone into a beast against their will, with the flick of a pen, or, I don't know, make the ultimate uber mega cancer spell, or what other wild shit the Witch Hat fans think up, it makes sense that magic should be policed. Humankind at large has proven that they should not be trusted to wield magic responsibly. But what I think one of the biggest questions of Witch Hat Atelier is when does a system stifle more than it protects? when is something too overbearing. Easthies fights to uphold a system that bars witches from learning basic first aid, using magic to heal those in need, and sharing a simple truth that would make life easier for the ignorant folks around the world. A system that our main characters often butt heads with, and personally see the injustices of. But the brimmed caps come along and manipulate children into locking their loved ones in a death loop, carving that trauma even deeper into their hearts with the promise of being able to fix it. They trick children into casting forbidden spells that do incredible harm. They play with magic they don't understand. They cause more problems than they seem to fix. There's this back and forth between the two extremes that creates an understanding of what damage that could be done if the Knights Moralis didn't exist. We see how good witches turn into abominations and indulge in forbidden magic for their own selfish gains. We see how easy it is to fall. But is Easthies right to rigidly uphold such a system, even if it does ultimately protect the status quo? Is the status quo even something we should be fighting to protect? The biggest point of criticism for Easthies comes at the climax of the Silver Eve arc. A giant leech is attacking the festival, feasting on all the people gathered to celebrate magic, witches and non-witches alike. Prior to Silver Eve and the whole leech attack, we do get to spend a little bit of time with the Knights Moralis, getting to know them as human beings, people with dreams, and people who care. The one I want to focus on is Lulusi, a woman who fights to protect others but can also be reasoned with. She's willing to bend the rules a tad if it helps, because she's committed to helping people, not blindly upholding the law. Easthies, on the other hand, is fully devoted to the law, to the point that I think it is his biggest character flaw. Easthies and Lulusi are almost foils of one another. During the leech attack, Lulusi sees the harm being done, and she sees the way that even forbidden magic can help. She's willing to do what's best for the people in front of her, despite what the rules say. Because at the end of the day, human lives are more important than anything else. Easthies, however, is not so forgiving. He fights to save others within the parameters that he upholds. He'll fight off the leech, he'll clear the way so others can get to safety, he'll put his own life on the line, but his rigidity does more harm than good. Coco does come up with a very smart plan to stop the giant leech without putting others at harm's way. Use the counterclock spell to reverse time on the leech, going back to when the leech was a person, effectively stopping the attack and reversing the wounds on those who had been injured, saving the city and those within. It's a win-win situation here. You find out what happened, you, find and apprehend the people responsible, and you basically undo all of the grave danger and terrible injuries that people have been sustaining. But it bends the rules too much for Easthies' comfort. It's something that even the three wise were like, well, it would work, but should we do it? There was a little back and forth, and Easthies is not willing to have that back and forth. And as soon as he learns of the counterclock device, he is determined to destroy it. It doesn't matter that Vainana, the wise and principals and his boss, approved of the idea. It doesn't matter that it'd save lives. It violated his principles. Easthies goes on a rampage, wiping the memories of any witch who stood in his way. A crazed lunatic abusing his power. To hell with those this plan would save. To Easthies, bending the rules even a little bit to help others is not worth the risk of opening up the world to looser regulations on magic. He is convinced that loosening up just a little bit will result in countless deaths in the future. He's stuck in his own trolley problem of sorts. Save people now to fuck over more in the future, or let those people die to protect the future from a potential chaos. He'd even wipe the memories of his special little guy Utoin if it meant preventing witches from breaking the rules. Something that shocks Utoin, to be honest. He really rolled up and said, "You wouldn't do it to me, your specialist littlest guy," and Easthies was like, "Yeah, girl. I don't compromise on my principles for anyone." And this moment does a lot, not only to characterize how Easthies' peers see him, but the real core of Easthies, how committed he is to what he believes is right, even if it puts him on the wrong side of history or in the wrong in the eyes of those that he cares about. Easthies' Rampage is kind of put into a grim perspective when you remember that every witch whose memory was wiped of magic has effectively had themselves taken from them. We see the full extent of this horror with the character Galga. His memory is wiped by a brimmed cap trying to protect herself, giving the Knights Moralis a taste of their own medicine. Galga is left as a shell of his former self. He doesn't know anything about his life, even forgetting his romantic partner, Atwert. All he retains is his drive to help others. Humans are built by their memories. We have core aspects of ourselves, sure, but a lot of what shapes us are our experiences and our memories. Galga is a blank slate now, and so is every witch Easthies attacks. That last part isn't entirely true because Easthies does make a point to mention he's only using the spell that takes like the last hour from them, but that's a detail that I think we easily forget given the way that this rampage is presented. Regardless of which specific memory wipe spell, the harm Easthies does seems to far outweigh the threat here. He's aiming to erase people's memories of that night, not their entire lives, not magic as a whole. It's not as bad as it could be, but the black tendrils that follow him, attacking any who stand in his way, creating carnage amongst the witches who are trying to save lives, it's all incredibly menacing, and it's distracting people from being able to save lives. It's preventing life-saving care. He's portrayed as a monster, the villain in this situation. And in a lot of ways, that's not entirely wrong. But if you really look at Easthies, he's behaving like an animal pushed into a corner. Everyone around him is dabbling in forbidden magic. So what if it's to help others? Bend the rules here, and that opens precedent to bend the rules again. Lulusi recognizes that Easthies' true intentions here are not just out of reverence of the pact he swore to uphold. His face tells it all. Fear rules his actions. Fear of what, exactly, we may not know. He could have had a loved one fall victim to forbidden magic, he himself could have had a close call, or maybe he was just deeply affected hearing about the awful things that were once done by magic. Coco is deeply affected by witnessing the horrors of forbidden magic, maybe not necessarily on herself, but on her mother. But even in the Romanon city, is that what it's called? The golden statue people? Coco was deeply upset by seeing the effects of forbidden magic in this area, even if it didn't necessarily pertain to her or anyone that she cared about. It was deeply upsetting on the basis that those were human beings. Regardless of Easthies' specific reasoning, it makes sense that he would be scared of forbidden magic and the domino effect that could potentially be at play here. But on the other hand, it could be fear of losing his power. Fear of the Knights Moralis no longer being needed, no longer having authority. However, Lulusi's sympathies lead me to believe that this is not the case. Everything we know about Easthies has been through seeing him in the present and seeing him through the eyes of those who know him. So while it may not be a complete picture of what's going on here, I do trust Lulusi as a character that we've been around more than Easthies himself. Lulusi's concern for him sounds more like the audience is supposed to assume that Easthies has some tragic backstory, much like many of the other characters in this series. He has somehow been impacted by the use of forbidden magic, impacted by the carelessness of another witch, willing to dabble in the unknown, willing to enact harm. With this in mind, was he really wrong to go to such extremes in the name of upholding the pact, the very thing that serves to protect witches and the world from forbidden magic? Well, yes and no. He wasn't right, but he wasn't really wrong either. Too extreme, sure. Too brash, absolutely. But in the world of Witch Hat Atelier, there is a lot at stake. And that's what I love about this series. There's a level of nuance in the writing that gives my brain a lot to chew on. Personally, I think the Knights Moralis should police on a case-by-case basis. Forbidden magic used? Okay, well, why? What specific spell? What did it do? What was the actual outcome here? What was the harm? A blanket punishment for everything, treating healers the same as witches of mass destruction? That's kind of insane to me. But I'm not an authority figure or a leader in Witch Hat Atelier, so what the hell do I know? Easthies doesn't regret what he did. At least, not by chapter 97. He's committed to the bit, steadfast in his morals, and I do love that in a character. Right or wrong, he did that shit and he's owning it. Even if all of his peers are treating him like a lunatic. He did what he thought was right, and he's not so easily swayed. He's not here to help people, he's here to protect others from the threat of magic gone unchecked. He believes he did the right thing in the name of checks and balances. He believes he was holding everyone accountable, and he believes that he is the voice of reason. Now, he's not. And given the precedent of evil-ass witches in the past, I don't think Easthies is entirely wrong to believe that he is those things, but he's objectively not a voice of reason. It is very easy to look at Easthies with the knowledge we have, knowing Coco and the other characters as well as we do, with the knowledge Easthies wouldn't be privy to, and judge him for his objectively harsh and harmful actions. But that's not as fun. It's the objective truth that Coco is a catalyst for changes within witch society. We already see the foundations of her shaking things up, attempting to work within the allowed parameters to change things, bending the rules just a little bit to help the greater good. Yeah, the counterclock spell might have technically maybe sort of been towing the line of what's allowed, but it was technically within the parameters. Justifiably in the parameters might be a better way to say it. Coco is able to rationalize it within the rules and the pact of witch society. But only time will tell if our optimism for Coco is well-founded, or if Easthies' anxieties will come to fruition. As a reader engaging with this narrative, it's easy to see the hopeful tone of the story and know that Coco is not going to destroy the world, essentially. She's going to change things for the better, but Easthies has no way of knowing this. He's not engaging with this as a narrative separated from himself. All he sees is a smoking gun, with no insight into how things will play out in the future. All he knows is how things have gone down in the past. And if we're building our perception of Coco's potential future, the past paints a grisly picture. I can't blame Easthies for being so scared. I will blame him for being an asshole, though. That's all you, Diva. But is Easthies objectively a bad person? No. I'm not saying he's a good person, but I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's a man that is stuck in this black and white thinking of witch society, but is still trying to do his best to uphold what he believes is right. I think he's a man that's very steadfast in his morals and is very committed to keeping forbidden magic in check. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. Sure, the system he is a part of, the system he upholds, is flawed. But in the world of Witch Hat Atelier, it's hard to come to the right answer. Yeah, a case-by-case basis, but that doesn't necessarily mitigate harm before it's done, in the way that the very rigid system allegedly seems to. It's messed up that Easthies did all that, sure, but I understand why. And I appreciate that he is so strongly committed to upholding what he believes is best, even if it's not actually best given all the knowledge that us as the audience are able to have. I don't know if I'm an Easthies defender, but I'm not an Easthies attacker. So I'm excited to see how his story plays out because he is going to have some sort of a character arc here. I mean, they literally gave that man an apprentice, so I don't think witch society is interested in necessarily punishing Easthies. At least not beyond house arrest and giving him time to cool off. I think if he was genuinely being seen as a lunatic and a criminal, they wouldn't have put a child in his care. Maybe Easthies is getting the treatment of, oh, take this adult person, give them a child, and hopefully it'll mellow them out, make them calm down. I don't think Easthies is supposed to be read as an objectively horrible person. A flawed character, sure, but he's not gone on his character arc yet. I think we need to give it time and see where he ends up on the other side of his journey. But as it stands, he's an asshole, a dickhead, but he's not a bad person. I love Witch Hat Atelier. I binge read the whole thing in like a week, like a month ago, and my life has never been the same since. Will I make more Witch Hat Atelier videos? It's very possible. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be. Goodbye!